Hey, everybody, I don't know about you, but as you've watched out over the world, the war in Russia and Ukraine is not just isolated to Eastern Europe. It's spread all over the world, and you can see it in market instabilities. You can see it here. People who do not think that that war is affecting you, all you got to do is look at gas prices. You look at your food prices. You see the global change that has happened. But you know something that's also affected investments as well. And I've said all along, legacy precious metals is your navigator. They're the ones that see you through to get to the next level. The good news about this is, even with market volatility, market instability, you've got options. And gold prices are rising as investors turn to gold. And gold presents a hedge against this inflation and that protects you against the weakening dollar, which we are seeing. Legacy Precious Metals is the only company I trust to deal with gold and silver and the other precious metals. You need this investment. You need this as part of your portfolio to keep you buffered from what we're seeing in the world, war and volatility in the market. This is where you need to be. Call Legacy Precious Metals today. Be proactive about this. Get on board with it. Call them at 866-528-1903, 866-528-1903, or you can download their free investor's guide at legacypminvestments.com. legacypminvestments.com, your navigator in a volatile world of investments.
Do you want to listen to a podcast?
By who?
Georgia GOP Congressman Doug Collins.
How is it?
The greatest thing I have ever heard in my whole life.
I could not believe my ears.
In this house, wherever the rules are disregarded, chaos and mob rule. It has been said today, where is bravery? I'll tell you where bravery is found and courage is found. It's found in this minority who has lived through the last year of nothing but rules being broken, people being put down, questions not being answered, and this majority say, be damned with anything else. We're going to impeach and do whatever we want to do. Why? Because we won an election. I guarantee you, one day you'll be back in the minority and it ain't gonna be that fun. Hey everybody, it's Doug Collins. Thanks for being a part of the podcast. You know, as I've been in this series, and we're starting this series, discussing what's been going on in these campaigns. We're getting to the end. These are last few days. I'm going to give you a few podcasts over the next few days to just simply catch you up on what's happening, give you some behind the scenes. Today, I want to start one, and this will, we'll start the week out with this. I wanted you to sort of get some thoughts. I want just as a random thoughts on the campaigns, what I've seen in general, what I'd like to see better, where I see this heading, and then the rest of the weeks in the podcast, I'm going to give you some in-depth looks at both the Senate races and the governor's races so that you can have the week ahead look as we go into these general elections here just in a few short days from now. So glad you're with me, glad you're starting the week out as we go forward. First and foremost, though, I want you to go to the DougCollinsPodcast.com. DougCollinsPodcast.com. That's where you can keep up with everything about the show. You can sign up for our emails. You can sign up. You can email me. There's a link on there if you wanted to have a question about a show, you had a question about one of the guests, or you had maybe a suggestion for a show. Please send us those suggestions. We've had several shows that we've done that have been suggestions of by comments that readers have sent in and listeners who sent in. So we want you to be an interactive part of the Doug Collins family as we go forward. Also, you're going to be finding out about a trip in April. We're getting this out there. Many of you have gotten our emails already. A trip to Washington, D.C. next April. And we're going to take tours of a lot of the places. I'm going to give you some behind-the-scenes looks on what that means in these buildings, the living history that goes along, and there's going to be some pretty special things you don't want to miss. Even if you've been to Washington, D.C., hundreds of times, you'll want to go. I encourage you to come be with us. We're going to have some big meals together. We're going to have family. We got Eric, the travel guy, is going to be with us. It's just going to be fun. Lisa and I are looking forward to welcoming you to Washington, D.C. with us next April. Go to DougCollinsPodcast.com/DC. Get all the information. There's special sign-up rates for those who go before and sign up before November to reserve your spot. Limited number of spots available. Please go and get signed up. Looking forward to seeing you in Washington, D.C. next April. All right, let me just give some random thoughts here. And this is one of those episodes where it's just you and me. I hope as if we're having a cup of coffee together. And we're looking at what has went on in this last, couple of years in this cycle since the 2020 elections, which has been a turmoil in many parts for a lot of things that were done out of the ordinary, that the complaints from many about what happened in the 2020 election, from President Trump on down, and then the results of it. Now, I'm going to take it past that. And since Joe Biden, took the White House, we have seen a steady dose of liberalism. We have seen a steady dose of a president who ran without really being challenged on his ideas, without being forced to do what all people running for president should have to do, and that's actually to give clear and concise, hard interviews and talk about what he wanted to do for a country and how he did it. But because of the pandemic, because of, I think, his age, and because, frankly, his advisors didn't want him out just talking to the media, he stayed in the basement, and the people really didn't get a chance. This became more of a referendum of personalities. And, the press and others who had attacked Donald Trump for 4 years incessantly, were able to convince, I think, a lot of the voters that a change needed to be made, even though the economy was good, the world standing was good. There's a lot of things to be positive about. They just didn't like Donald Trump. And that's what you saw, again, coupled with a lot of problems that were brought out with people and the discussion of our country in the election process of 2020. This is where you brought us into this, quote, next cycle. Over the past year, we have seen money from the Biden administration poured into the economy, jump-starting inflation. His own economist said, hey, this isn't going to be a good idea. Liberal economists saying you don't want to put money into the system when you have supply chain shortages, when you have, the issues that we're having with supply and demand, and you put more money into the system, which is already saturated with federal money in many of these states and areas. You don't want to do this. He did it anyway. And, we go from 2% inflation to year over year, 8-9% inflation, the highest in 40 years. That has caused, again, problems as in this election cycle. Then you have for what many of us viewed as the biggest foreign policy debacle in ages, and that is the withdrawal from Afghanistan, in which we lost 13 American lives. But not only more is important, just as important as we remember those lives that were sacrificed in that during that time and taken from us, is also the loss of world standing in how we did this. Our military leadership, the administration, and how they handled the withdrawal from Afghanistan, which is a complete debacle. And for many believe that it actually turned into what we saw in Russia this year attacking Ukraine, the Chinese more aggressive stance toward Taiwan, all because when you do not have a strong America on the world stage, it is a time in which those who want to be strong will do everything that they can. You also had an infrastructure bill that had nothing to do with infrastructure. You had a year in which you had, school boards and others who had been experiencing shutdowns, lockdowns, however you want to call it, of students, and curriculum was getting examined by parents who were actually seeing what their kids were doing and asking questions at school board meetings. You had school board meetings in which were turning, into chaos because school board members thought that they were much better than the parents who were coming to ask simple questions about their parents. And many of them basically were saying, look, the schools are much better equipped to train and educate your kid not only in math and sciences and social studies, but also in social engineering as well, from critical race theory to the promotion of alternative lifestyles, all apart from the parents' consent. And the Biden administration and the Democrats in Congress went lockstep along with this. People were beginning to feel isolated. You saw this in the Youngkin election last fall in Virginia, and it is carried on into this election cycle as well. But all of that put together led us to what we knew was going to be a contentious election cycle. We saw a lot of primaries that were very close. We saw a lot of contentiousness on the Republican side, the Democratic side. And as we get ready for really this last week, just some things that I wanted to point out about where we're at and what's going to go on. And two things that really stuck out to me is the Democrats who are having to deal with the decisions that they have made, trying to twist the narrative that it's not their fault, that everything for the first 18 months was Donald Trump's fault, not the Democrats' fault. And people aren't buying that. I think we've seen that over time. Not that some do not that some still want to blame the former president for everything that is wrong. You are seeing more and more of a time now in which the electorate is more concerned with what actually is happening and not who to blame is, but one, why is my gas prices over $4 a gallon, or going, even if it's back down to $3 a gallon, why is it more than $1 plus than when Joe Biden took office? Why is my food prices going up? Why is inflation like it is? And then for Nancy Pelosi to simply, basically ignore the realities around her just the other day and said, inflation has nothing to do with cost of living. I don't even know how to answer that one. I don't know. You look at it from perspective. If you're saying the Speaker of the House is saying inflation doesn't have anything to do with cost of living, then Madam Speaker, what does it have to do with? Then what is inflation to start with? Inflation is basically a regressive tax. It is keeping the buying power. You lose almost at 8% of inflation in this country. You're losing almost a month's worth of buying power. Now, that is the reality that people are facing. And when you're going into a winter in which gas and oil prices, because of the attack by the Democrats on our energy independence, has succeeded, and then we're begging from Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Venezuela and other parts of the world to up our gas, and still trying to blame it on Putin and the war in Ukraine, is just simply, people. Again, at the end of the day, they're not as concerned about where it's coming from, except they know that this was a policy set forth under Democrats, and it's affecting their pocketbook. It's affecting their everyday life. It's making changes to their lifestyle that, frankly, these are the issues that people vote on. At the end of the day, I had a good friend of mine who made this comment. He said, campaigns can do everything they want to try and shape the narrative. They can take out ads. They can spend hundreds of millions of dollars. They can do whatever they want. The speeches from the candidate can talk about issues until they're blue in the face. But at the end of the day, it is the voters that decide what is important. It is the voters who get a say. And right now across this country, we're seeing turnout in record numbers in early voting. We're getting ready for, I believe, a record number of votes in an off-year midterm election in many of these states. And it is the voters who will have a say. Polls are fine, campaigns are fine, speeches are fine, but at the end of the day, it's going to be the voters who have a say. And as we look at this, it is these issues that have shaped this campaign. So as I talk over this week ahead, as I give out, as we talk more about these Senate races, and I give you my predictions and where the polls are, I wanted just to do this one to frame the topic. So as we look at going ahead, the inflation, the economy, these races have come back to the basics. Now, many of you will say, well, what about the Mississippi and the Roe v. Wade decision? What about, the rolling back of Roe? That's going to make a difference. It did for a while. Okay, I'll be frank with you. It did. I think the pro-life community was not caught off guard, but in some ways caught off guard and surprised by the decision to actually go ahead and overturn Roe and Casey. There was rejoicing on the pro-life community that now laws such as the limits on abortion in states and the absolute ban on states was now here. There was a discussion on what do we do. The media, of course, went completely unhinged about this, saying that it was going to affect every election, that people were going to come out in the streets, that the democracy, the Supreme Court is politicized. I mean, you just heard everything. And when it was leaked, I mean, the vitriol from the left, which was downplayed by the media, I think at the end of the day, when people across the country saw these, the left, protesting at Supreme Court justices' houses, you have somebody who was arrested just a few blocks or a few houses from a Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh's house, wanting to kill him. This is what was playing out in America, saying, look, the press is downplaying this, but these are real issues that are affecting how we view our safety, how we view crime. And at the end of the day, it looks like in this election cycle, the abortion issue will play a prominent part in some of these races, but not all of these races. It's not what, in fact, you see Democrats here in the last couple of weeks have been switching messages from the abortion narrative to back to where this election is coming into focus. Sort of reminds me of the James Carville quote from the Clinton run back in 92 when he said, "It's the economy, stupid." This is true. It's the economy. It is the security. It is the safety of people. There are two areas that people want in their life. They want economic security and they want physical security. And right now, both of those feel threatened, especially if you're in cities. This is why we're seeing, I think the results of closeness of races in places like Oregon, that you would have never expected a Republican to possibly win in the governor's seat out there. We're going to talk about that later in the week. Where Washington State, where they're putting $3 million more into Patty Murray's Senate seat out in Washington State. Why? It's because people, liberal and conservative states, still want an economic future that is bright, and they want a safety for their family, and they want to be involved in their kids' lives. They want their government to be what government should be and not what government should not be, and that is overbearing in their life. But real quickly, back to the abortion debate. So you saw this come out, and this is what the Democrats thought, that they could turn the economic narrative on its head by saying this is going to turn these races and change the outcomes, especially in the suburban races, maybe in different states where they were struggling. And what they saw was a temporary bump. We saw this in certain areas. And then Republicans finally went on the offensive. I think the final straw for many Republicans, myself included, was the New York 19 race, a special election in which two male candidates, a Republican and a Democrat, went at this one. The male Democrat took on the mantle of Planned Parenthood. They put a lot of money into this race. The Republican kept up the economic message but never answered the abortion question in any real and tangible way. And that allowed this race in late August to be dominated by the Democrat and abortion. What we saw since then is Republicans now coming out and actually fighting back, if you would, against the abortion narrative and against, what happened, putting it back in the states where it belongs, taking the lies that happened in Kansas and where, a constitutional amendment the left was lying about, the pro-abortion groups were lying about, saying if you pass this, automatically all abortions will cease in the state of Kansas. That was a lie. It was, frankly, that's you can pretty it up all you want, but that was just a lie. But yet a lot of people were affected by it because they didn't read, and the amendment, frankly, was poorly written to where that was what people began to believe. So in Kansas, you had this amendment that was turned down on abortion, and the left just said, yep, this is our pathway. But what happened was the Republicans went on the offensive. They began to look at this, at abortion. They began to put it back into terms that have happened over the last, 40, 50 years in this country. Why the idea that some restrictions on abortion were good, even in liberal states, was the fact that they began to see the child in the womb for what the child was, and that is a baby, whether it was through ultrasounds, whether it was through testing. You began to see in literal figure images of, the baby in the womb. And this is what's over the last 40 years has been moving this debate more decidedly into pro-life direction for years. The Republicans went back to that. They began to frame the narrative as the issue of life, the issue of that we're a culture of life, and then also began to push back. And you finally began to see Democrats being asked the question, well, do you favor any restrictions on abortion? Now, look, as much as liberals like to claim that Roe v. Wade was a settled precedent, well, number one, remember, it was a court decided right, not a constitutionally found right. The courts just out of thin air found this. Even liberals who agreed with the decision over the years have written that there is no legal underpinning to the Roe v. Wade decision. Given that discussion, when you have the ability to frame it as something that people have a choice about, then you have the Democrats having to answer the question, do you favor any of the restrictions placed on abortion? Now, if they said no, then they're for, basically abortion up until the moment of birth. That's an opinion that is not shared by anywhere close to the majority in this country. In fact, it has gotten bigger and bigger. Late-term abortions are not something people want to think about. They're horrific. They are murder in the purest sense. And now you are having Democrats who, for fear of their base, saying, well, I don't support restrictions, or I think that should be left to the doctor and the patient, and all these, sort of euphemistic phrases. So now when put on the defensive, the idea that the Roe v. Wade overturn was going to be the predominant effect in some of these races really just went out the window. And so when you look at it from those terms, when you look at it in the sense that finally the Democrats are being asked the question, do you support abortion for sex change, for sex selection? Do you support abortion for contraception? Do you support abortion for children who have deformities in the womb? Do you, these are the kind of things that Democrats were now finally forced to answer. And as they answered them, it became more and more clear that they were just out of touch with anybody except their very liberal base. Why does that matter? Because it mattered that the Republicans then were able to put the narrative back on the economy, the inflation, gas prices, our immigration. Again, is another issue that keeps coming up, especially among our border states, especially among states that are experiencing a high fentanyl level, because it's just pouring across our southern border. And the vice president, who is supposed to be the border czar, doesn't even know where the border is. Joe Biden ignores it. Democrats are avoiding the question at any time. And people are seeing this. That is why you're seeing Hispanic polling numbers turning toward Republicans in places like Florida and Texas, Arizona, even New Mexico. You're seeing African-American numbers rising for Republicans when it comes to the economic issues and education issues for their children. They want to be able to give their children the best education. They want to have a choice in it. They don't want to simply be locked into bad schools in which teachers' unions are basically keeping their own children captive to bad students, bad teachers, bad curriculum. And this is affecting all voters. Inherently, over the past few years, we're seeing a turn in the understanding maybe through the pandemic, whatever you want to call it, that parents have a real role in their child's education and they care about it. And these are coming out in just as much of economic nuts and bolts issues as you have. So as I lay all this out, I don't want to spend, just belabor these points, but as we get into these final few days, as people are turning out to vote, this is the state of the country. I think in some areas you're going to have liberals will do a little bit better based on maybe some of the abortion issues. I think that will affect some suburban races, especially if the Republicans have not done a very good job framing the issue. But at the end of the day, the overriding issues that are going to affect the most in the election on November 8th is going to be the inflation, economy, gas prices, immigration, our standing in the world, crime is definitely up there as well. Because as I said before, people want to not only feel economically safe, they want to feel physically safe. They want to make sure that their families have the opportunities for education and opportunities for advancement that many of them had. And they're not willing to put that aside for what they see as out of touch policies or liberal policies in which they just don't agree with. And I think this is where the Biden administration has hurt. And if you don't believe me, all you got to do is look at some of these moderate Democrats who went along with these, who are now in races in which they're probably going to get beat. When you look at races in which Biden won the district 5 to 10 points, those races are toss-ups at best, with Republicans gaining. At the end of the day, I think you're going to see a House that is going to go anywhere from 25 to 225 to 240 in final number. A very bad night is 225. A good night is going to be 235 to 240. We're seeing that break. We'll see if that continues this week in the trends of elections as we go forward. So again, we talk about a lot of things, and we're going to get back to a lot of different guests as we've had in the past on the Doug Collins podcast in the weeks to come. But this is an important election cycle. And then let me finish before I get done with today's broadcast on the podcast, and then getting you into the next couple of days of broadcasting that you're going to get from the podcast about these races. And that is to go vote. Voting is a right given to you as an inherent right of the founding fathers, who said that we give the people the right to vote, to choose the republic in which they live. And if you're not voting, I've said this many, many times before, but if you choose not to vote, then please do not make an opinion about your government. Please do not tell anybody that you're upset about tax increases, or you're upset about tax cuts, or you're happy that abortion is legal, or abortion is not legal. If you're out there and you're willing to not go vote, then you're willing to not participate in the system. So, quit listening to, political broadcasts. Don't get involved, because again, your vote is the way that you're involved. You can mouth all you want. You can talk all you want. You can write opinion pieces to the editor. You can even write books. But if you're not actually using what you have been given as an American citizen, and that is your right to vote, it is a shame, because you are basically turning your back on those who have died for the right to even have a country like we have, and have protected that country across the world for freedom across this country and across the world for years. Don't give up your right. You may not vote like I do. You may not believe like I do. You may listen to this podcast just to make fun of me, and that's fine. You go vote still. I want everybody to use their right to vote. And what is even sadder in this country is that there are more people who are eligible to vote who are not registered than those that will actually vote. Why is that? I know you're busy, but do you realize that everything government does affects every part of your life? Shouldn't you have a say in it? And you say your one vote matters. Just go look up how many elections were decided by a single vote. Do you want to let these races in your state, in your county, in your district be decided without your input? I hope not. This is Doug Collins signing off on the Doug Collins Podcast. Glad to have you with us. Thank you for over a year. We're celebrating. This is our year celebration of this podcast. We've been doing this a year now, a little over a year. And we just want to thank you for all your support. Please, if you have others who've not heard this broadcast, share this podcast with them. Ask them to subscribe to the podcast. Got lots more great stuff coming up in the new year on the Doug Collins Podcast. But the only way we can do it is with your help, and that is by your participation in subscribing and sharing these podcasts as you go. God bless you. We'll talk to you again soon. Hey everybody, MyPillow. I just wanted to let you know MyPillow is having the biggest sheet sale of the year. You'll have to help. You have all helped build MyPillow into an amazing company that it is today. And now Mike Lindell, the inventor and CEO, wants to give back exclusively to his listeners. The Percale bed sheet is available in a variety of colors and sizes, and they're all on sale. For example, the queen size is regularly priced at $89.98, but it is now only $39.98 with our listener promo code. Order now, because when they're gone, they're gone. You're not going to be able to get it. These Percale sheets are breathable. They have cool, crisp feel. They come with a 10-year warranty, 60-day money-back guarantee. Don't miss out on this incredible offer. There's a limited supply, so be sure to order now. Call 1-800-986-3994. Use the promo code Collins, COLLINS, or you can go to mypillow.com, click on the radio listener square, and use the promo code Collins, COLLINS. Lisa and I sleep on these sheets every night. You will want to have them as well. They're a wonderful product. Go right now, either 800-986-3994, code word Collins, or go to mypillow.com. Also use the code word Collins to get this discount. You will not regret it.